Welcome into the opening line report with Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. We're talking mostly NFL today, guys. We got season win totals. We got a little draft talk as well. We'll also take some questions. Feel free to chime in on the chat box. But without further ado, happy Monday morning to you, Teddy. How you feeling?
I'm doing all right. A little post-Easter hangover. How about yourself, buddy?
A little bit of post-Easter hangover. I mean, it didn't really feel like a full-blown Easter to me, but a little relaxation and didn't lose too much money betting. So I guess that's one good thing, Teddy.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what. I'm ready for a bad day betting, okay? I'm ready for a good day betting. I'm ready for any kind of day betting. This is the longest I've gone. I bet a horse in the Florida Derby.
Did you? Okay.
What was that 2 Saturdays ago?
Mm-hmm.
I've made a bet since. The ping pong's out there. I know the Nicaraguan soccer is out there. I'm ready. That's all I'm saying. And especially, I've been doing NFL work all week. I feel good about some of the progress that we've made this last week, and it feels good to be doing something productive. Man, I'm ready to make some bets. I really am.
Yeah,
I'm
Teddy,
ready for
I'll
some
tell
games.
Yeah, I mean, what, the Belarus soccer or something like that, where their president thinks drinking vodka helps with COVID-19. I saw that. Their league's still playing. The Nicaraguan soccer league that you're talking about, but living down in Costa Rica, all the Nicaraguans I knew love baseball, not soccer. So that's what throws me off that their soccer league's playing. I'm kind of wary of jumping in and betting that league, Teddy. So I really haven't made many bets either, man.
No, I mean, it's coming. Look, this will not last forever. This is not the end of humankind. Sports will continue. Bettable sports will continue. And what we got to do now is breathe, take a breath, get a little R&R, or mostly the R, because we're not out having fun, but get a little R and get ready for when this is coming back, because it's coming, whether it's a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whenever it is, it's coming. And obviously we don't think it's going to be 6 months or a year before we have something to bet on. But there will be televised sports and bettable sports in 2020 of one form or another, and it's our job to get ready. So that's what we've been doing.
All right, Teddy. Well, we got a heavy NFL slate for today's show, but did want to ask before we get going on that, one of the topics here is, when is the economy going to reopen? When is sports going to take kind of full front here? And do you have a date in your mind, like where you would bet it at? If you were taking bets on either side, wanting to make a -110 line on each side, what's the date that you would select to where sports kind of kicks off here?
So let's call sports one of the 4 major U.S. sports.
Tipping off, yeah.
Yeah. MLB, NHL, NBA, or what's the other sport? NFL?
NFL, yeah.
That's kind of a big one. If we're talking about the date, whatever the date of the first game is, I have to bet over. You know what I mean? That said, I do think that before April is through, we'll have some type of a plan to see some sports back on the field. You ask me what the date is, I'm still betting overs. I'm not expecting to see that we're going to see somebody on the field on June 1st. We might. May might be a prep month and June might be, all right, we're playing month. But if I had to bet it, I'm still betting overs right now. So far, at least.
And has anything changed with college football week 1 kicking off on time and the Super Bowl happening the day the Super Bowl is supposed to kick off? Would you bet yes that those two things both happening, or would you bet no on one of those two things not happening?
I'd bet no on both. But at even money, I'm betting no on the college football doesn't kick off on time and the Super Bowl doesn't get played on time. And -110, I'll take the no on both. Okay. Part of it's a hedge for me, although let's not forget. My income is based on the fact that there are sports bets being out there. So if there's no sports bet and I can cash a no that helps pay some of my bills or keep you afloat for another month, then absolutely. It makes sense to make a hedge bet on the no, but it isn't just a hedge, to be betting no's on these. It's especially for college sports. It's one thing for the pros who are getting paid. For college sports, we saw the reaction just when one head coach, Mike Gundy, in one place When said, yeah, let's get these kids back on the field, and everyone went nuts, and oh my God, I think it's going to be more difficult for college sports to be played than pro sports because the college kids aren't getting paid. I think it's going to be that if you say which is more likely to go full this fall, NFL or college, I'll say NFL. Even though NFL has more games, just because those guys are getting paid, they're getting paid to take risks that the college kids aren't.
Makes perfect sense. And welcome into the chat box. We got Paul from England joining us. Thanks, Paul, for joining us. Feel free to shout out any questions. Chris WagerTalk, what's up, man? And, of course, always thank you to Lawrence Presman. Guys, remember at 3 o'clock Eastern, we got Meet the Experts Vino on with Lawrence Presman. So that's coming up in just a couple hours here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Make sure to check that out. Also, we got Jim Feist on tomorrow's show of Meet the Experts with Lawrence Presman. So, Teddy, we got season win totals here in the NFL. You sent me a chart here, and it's kind of interesting. It's got both new DCs, new OCs, and head coaches. How did you want to attack this? Just ABC order from top to bottom, or what were you thinking?
Maybe by division. I don't know. Well, it's funny right now when you look at the NFL head coach. One thing that I did. You look at the NFL head coaches, there's 5 guys who are like grandfathered in now. Belichick, Peyton, Tomlin, Carroll, Harbaugh. They've all been in their respective locations a decade plus. You have 4 coaches who are now in the second tier. And the 4 coaches in the second tier shocked me. Which, shock is the wrong word, but you're like, all right, I understand the NFL the coaching carousel moves pretty quickly. But after Belichick, Peyton, Tomlin, Carroll, and Harbaugh, the next 4 coaches in terms of longevity, Andy Reid in Kansas City. All right. Yeah. Dan Quinn in Atlanta, Bill O'Brien in Houston, and Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. And you make a case, at least 3 of those 4 guys are coaching for their jobs this season. I don't know if Zimmer is, but he might be, considering that roster. They're supposed to be competing for Super Bowls right now. But O'Brien, I understand he's won 4 divisional titles in the last 6 years. He's coaching for his job this year, considering the moves they've made. And Quinn's barely held on to his job each of the last 2 seasons in Atlanta. The coaching carousel for the NFL, it shows us very clearly, the coaches with their systems in place are going to have an edge over the coaches that don't. And when you look at the teams with the new coaches this year, Carolina, new coach, new offense coordinator, new defense coordinator, first-time NFL head coach in Matt Rule. Same thing in Cleveland with Stefanski. Also new offense coordinator, new defense coordinator. Fangio's done it before, or not Fangio, McCarthy has done it before in Dallas. But again, new coach, new OC, new DC. For the Giants, there are things to like about the Giants this year. But again, with Judge, you have a new coach, a new offense coordinator, a new defense coordinator. For the Redskins, same story. New coach, new OC, new DC. Those are 5 teams I'm not betting over, I'll tell you that. When you're talking about the concept of new schemes, new coordinators, new coaches, and no spring football to put that in place, you're looking for 5 teams to bet against right off the bat. 5 teams you can't bet season win totals over. You do. If you bet Carolina, Cleveland, Dallas, the Giants, and the Redskins under their totals right now, I can't say you don't cash 3 out of 5. Now, it's worth noting, that there's a profitable against, just bet the board, where you're fading these teams that aren't likely to be ready for the regular season. Most assuredly, that stands out like a sore thumb. But it's not just teams with new head coaches and coordinators. You have new OC and DC in Jacksonville. Marone's back. You have a new OC and DC with the Rams. McVay's back. A new OC and DC in Miami. Flores is back. Zimmer's back in Minnesota. They've got new OC and DC. So it's not just the teams with new head coaches. When you're changing schemes and changing coordinators, this particular offseason, it has to put you behind the 8 ball. And I haven't seen the markets necessarily adjust to that yet. So, Drew, you asked me where I wanted to go with this like 5 minutes ago, and I still haven't answered the question. There's so much to talk about with season wins. I love talking season wins. It makes me feel better to be talking season wins. This is at least part of how I spent every offseason for the last 20 years. So why would this one be any different?
And we have an extended offseason, or at least more time to do this work, Teddy. I mean, you've been good for multiple years. Heck, maybe even decades. I don't know. Have you gotten to where we can say decades? Has it been 20 years of this track record, Teddy?
So the first year I put out season wins was 2001.
So we're getting there. We're very close to
and it was at 70% going into last year. Last year I had a bad year with the season wins. There's no, and I've had 3 of them over this span. So they have happened. I've never had 2 bad years in a row. And so help me God. Whatever. This if there's a level of confidence, this will be a good report this year. That's all I'm going to say. There's I like where I'm at in the process already. And I love the fact that as much as any year ever, we've got numbers again. These are not mature numbers yet. In the NFL, there are still 2 key components that aren't in play before the markets will get mature. One is the actual schedule. We don't have an NFL schedule, and it's really hard to be betting NFL season wins. You have a list of opponents, but you don't have the schedule itself. And make no mistake about it, the schedule itself is more important than the actual list of opponents. How many teams you get coming off of buys? How many teams do you get in sandwich spots? Or every bit as important as the teams that I shouldn't say more important, but every bit as important as the teams that you're going to face is when you're going to face them. And the nuances of the schedule, we have none of that right now. And we also haven't had the draft, which obviously is less than, 10 days away now for the NFL draft? Or is it? No, it's next week.
Next Thursday, right?
Yeah, it's 10 days from today. So I don't tend to adjust my power ratings and my season win total numbers very much off the draft. Free agency is the much more important of the 2 factors. But the schedule itself is a pretty key factor. And you will see these numbers bounce around once the draft happens and once the schedule gets released. But at least the numbers we have that we're going to go through today, we can go through a number for every team and say, yeah, this is where the markets are pricing them right now, so you can get a sense of what the future adjustments are very clearly once the schedule gets released and once the draft is completed. This marketplace is going to be a mature market in a month or less. Books are already posting, and in taking down the lines and factoring in, of course, I'm factoring in juice. All the numbers I'm going to talk about are going to factor in today the base price comparison of a half a win is worth 50 cents of juice. So I'm going to give you numbers with the juice already baked into the number. But you see a fair bit of disparity between one book and the next. The other thing you see, as we see every year, but this year it really stands out. If there are no ties in the NFL, there are going to be 256 wins if the full season gets played this year.
Okay.
And yet, when you add up all the season win totals with the juice factored in, you're not looking at 256 wins. You're looking at 266 wins. It really is a significant disparity. So there's plenty of unders that are likely to attract some betting attention, because the marketplace itself, it's not a big skew, but it is slightly skewed to the over. And that's across the board. It's not one book. That's across books. We're talking about anywhere between 6, 8, 10 more wins than teams are actually going to get this year. And again, that's counting no ties. There's always a tie or two in the modern NFL where there's only a 10-minute overtime. Ties don't count as wins. So their ties are great for underbettors. So there's definitely a bit of shading to the market from the get-go to the over. So savvy bettors right now probably looking at some unders.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy, Teddy. I mean, 10 on 256. I mean, it's not a lot. It's that's near 2% more wins than there should be. Plus the fact there's ties. Do you know about how many ties there are in an NFL season?
And it's like an average of 1 and a. Since it's been the 10-minute overtime, it's been like 1 1/4, 1 1/2.
Okay. So not many there, but
there will be a tie or two in the NFL this season, and that will keep the wins down to 255 or 254. It's real. It's not going to be there. There's someone's going to tie, assuming we have a season. But right now it looks like we're going to have something. But assuming there's a season, there'll be a game that finishes in a tie, and then instead of 256 total wins, it'll be 255 or 254. So again, little edges over time.
Teddy, you brought up a couple NFC South teams here. You want to start off there?
Yeah, we can start wherever you want, buddy. I mean, there's 8 divisions to go through, so we can go wherever you want.
All right, let's do it. Going off of this list here, which isn't in divisional order, but heck, we'll still probably be all right.
I'm sorting by division right now as we speak, brother.
Okay. Well, I'll start it off here. We got Tampa Bay, obviously quarterback questions, maybe not so much questions, actually. I mean, we might know what we're getting here. Interesting with Tom Brady being there in Tampa. Some kind of off the field, I guess you could say headlines, but still, you know what you're getting in terms of a leader there in Tampa. We're seeing him, 9.5 wins? Bruce Arians is the head coach, Teddy. That's what I'm reading off the sheet you sent me. I mean, overall, this division, Teddy, we've talked about it in the past. Just a lot of movement. Don't be surprised. Worst to first. It's happened in the past. Could happen again this year. Tampa Bay 9.5-ish seems to be about their season win totals here, both at Penny and BetMGM. I'll throw it over to you. What are you thinking for the Bucs this year?
Yeah, and of course, it's a Tampa Bay team that showed promise last year in a lot of different ways. Their defense was really good against the run. It improved as the season progressed. The pass rusher was there. It was an overachieving defense. Offensively, there were playmakers all over the field. They couldn't avoid turnovers. And they had a quarterback who turned the ball over more than any other QB in the NFL last year. And that's why they were a 7-win team a season ago. Tied for, they finished, there was only one winning team in that division when all said and done last year. Atlanta and Tampa both tied at 7-9. Carolina sitting at 5-11. So Tampa, the market's now, I got a 9.5 and a 9.4 basically, where they're being, in terms of their wins and where they're with the juice being priced in on the Bucs from a strength of schedule standpoint. And again, strength of schedule matters a lot. We don't have the schedule itself, but we do have this year's win totals. And Tampa's one of those teams that when you're looking at this year's win totals projected versus the one-loss record of the teams last year, you're going to see quite a disparity. You understand what I'm saying? The mainstream way to look at strength of the schedule is to take all your opponents' records a year before and add them up and say this is how tough your schedule is. Okay. And in that regard, Tampa's basically middle of the pack. However, if you do it the way we do it here in Vegas, strength of schedule has nothing to do with last year's records, has everything to do with this year's win totals. So if you look at Tampa based on this year's season win totals for their opponents, their schedule was a good notch or two tougher than the markets have it versus the record from last year. And some of that has to do with the division. Like we said, this division that in theory is supposed to be pretty good, and there was only one team in the division a season ago. So Arians is back, offense coordinator returns, defense coordinator returns. Personnel-wise, you can understand why there's some love for Tampa. The question for the Bucs is, number one, Tom Brady an upgrade over Jameis Winston. And that is a question for 20.
Really?
Yes.
Jameis Winston was the defensive player of the year last year, Teddy. I mean, the amount of interceptions he threw, we got arguably the best quarterback of all time coming down. I know he's past his prime, but still, I would say it's an upgrade.
Jameis Winston led the NFL in passing yards last year.
But passing
Tom Brady, by December and January, Tom Brady was an old man playing quarterback, and that's why the Patriots lost. So that's my 2 cents.
I gotcha. Well, we got we do have Prez in the background here, Teddy. Prez, you want to jump in?
Yeah, dude. Tom Brady's arm so dead he hasn't masturbated in a year.
Well, that's one way to look at it, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm
Teddy,
I'm
any
with
comment?
Teddy 100% on this one, and I like the under 9.5. They're in a ridiculous division. Tom Brady is so past his prime; it's not even funny. And Jameis Winston got the ball downfield. I mean, the amount of yards he put up were just ridiculous. I understand those interceptions, but you watch Tom Brady. I mean, he's going to throw a shit ton of interceptions this year, too. I am with you, Mr. Covers, and I'm now getting off of this show.
I can't even understand why. I can't understand what would prompt you. What would prompt
Boredom.
you as you running the board? Sit there and go, yeah, this is a podcast been going, hey, Teddy and Drew have been doing it for 15 years, but I need to interrupt his train of thought and make sure that
Why are you
everyone knows
starting with
that
me,
what
Teddy?
my
I
opinion.
waited for
So
you to finish. Drew, do you just want to
keep
sit back
talking,
and
bud.
let Teddy and I fight? Like, for some reason, Teddy just wants to take a shot at me. I can mute you, and I can do this show with Drew alone. I'm now going to mute myself
yourself
and
out.
let you continue.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
bugger off, schmuck.
Shout out to Abel in the chat box here. He just won a draw in the Belarusian Soccer League. Scott Brown, welcome in, man. He's saying O'Brien, a horrible GM, but he's a really good head coach, Teddy. We got Broke Mechanic saying Tampa over 8, although we're seeing them at 9.5, right, Teddy?
With the juice factored in. If you find Tampa over 8, that's a great number. I haven't seen a Tampa over 8.
Okay.
Not in the last couple of weeks. So if you got an 8, tell me what the juice is and where you bet it, because that's a bet that I want to make right now.
Scott Brown saying Ravens under 11.5. We might get to Ravens today. If not, we'll get to them next week's show. Steve Terry, what's up, buddy? Saying hi to both you and I here, Teddy. And Leo, welcome in, man. He's liking Prez comments here. Zach as well. I don't know if he's clueless, but we got a bunch going on. So it is what it is, guys. Welcome in the chat box, and please throw out any questions. They're all welcome. Any comments, what you're wanting to hear, it all works for us. So Teddy, we got Carolina, or did you have any kind of follow up here to Tampa Bay? Just over under kind of last thoughts here.
So I'm not looking to bet a very public team with an ancient quarterback who everyone's got every eye on over the total. I don't know that I get there under with Tampa. They're probably going to be a pass. Or 9 over with juice with the minus 150s and minus 180s, and when we're seeing on Tampa juice wise to the over 9, a little bit too rich for my blood on the Bucks, especially in a division where I do like 2 of the other teams.
Okay, so liking 2 of them, and obviously that correlates with how you're going to feel in the other teams in the division because they play each team twice. So we got also New Orleans here, who leads the way in the NFC South, seeing them about 10.5 here, Teddy. Sean Payton keeping the reins here as the head coach. New Orleans, I've heard both kind of opinions both ways. Taking a step back, which in this division we've seen a lot going on in terms of first to last, last to first. Also, they're getting a little older, at the quarterback position, other things. I'm not necessarily looking to bet New Orleans over the total, Teddy. How do you feel?
So I lost a big ticket for myself and the clients betting the Saints under the total last year. And I mean, I'm telling you, week 2, they're sitting 1-1. Breeze is hurt. They got a monster schedule ahead of them. And I'm like, this is a dream scenario. They're going to go 3-13. And lo and behold, they win every close game. And I'll give Bridgewater credit. I'll give the defense credit. I'll give Sean Payton credit. I didn't think that. I thought that their top line talent, they paid too much for the top line talent. The depth wasn't there. The injuries would catch up. And that wasn't the case. The depth was there for the Saints. They had injuries all year, especially on the defense side of the football. And despite the injuries, and look, they did win basically every close game all year. They were incredible in the one-score games and incredible, on both sides of the football. But they beat me pretty bad last year. It wasn't a right side. It wasn't close to being a right side on the Saints. All that said, again, we're talking about a team that's lined 10.5 wins, and I ain't betting them over. We talked a lot, and New Orleans is still a team with a lot of frontline talent and a lot of question marks when it comes to quality depth. But just as we talked about with Tom Brady, the ancient QBs, and Drew Brees is ancient now. Okay, he's not old, he's way old. I don't trust the ancient QBs to get through the season and be playing well into December and January. Not when they're in, not if they stay healthy all year. And the Saints actually probably got a break in terms of Breeze being hurt and Bridgewater getting all those starts mid-season.
Okay.
Left Breeze arm, he was fine in December. I'm not convinced that'll be the case this year. I'm not bullish on the Saints. If I'm going to bet the Saints, it'll likely be under the total. It's just a lean category right now. And again, another team where the coaching staff in place, so we don't have to worry about coordinator changes, scheme changes, anything like that for New Orleans. So in theory, even though Peyton, one of the only NFL guys we've heard about being, testing positive for COVID-19, even with that setback for New Orleans in March, I would think that they'll be, coaching staff-wise, they'll be just fine come August and September when the season kicks off.
And Teddy, it's kind of twice here with the older quarterbacks, not necessarily you're looking to fade away on them or anything, but not necessarily looking to bet on them. And I get what you're talking about, guys kind of past their prime. But this is the quarterback position in the NFL. It's really tough to find guys that do it really well for long periods of time. I almost wonder, kind of handicapping 101, kind of a glimpse view question here. There's just not that many great quarterbacks. Are you kind of worried that you're discounting them a little bit? Guys like Drew Brees, guys like Tom Brady. I mean, they might be a little bit better, even though in their later years, they're not Patrick Mahomes, but they're not the number 30 quarterback in the NFL, Teddy.
Agreed with that they're not, bottom tier QBs. In September, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, assuming a health of the normal training camp and they're going to the season, there will be upper echelon QBs. By December, if those same guys don't get hurt, we've seen it already. We've seen that not once, not twice, but year in, year out, the older QBs, even with the miracle diets and even with the extra training and whatever else they do, by December, those guys are worn down in a way that Patrick Mahomes isn't. And I think it's very real for a Phillip Rivers or a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees to say, if they play all 16 games, it's bad for that team. Because they're not going to be at their best come December. And the younger QBs will be. And that's when, these win totals, a lot of them go over or under. So, I don't want to dismiss Tom Brady. Day one, he'll be great. Week 13, what's Tom Brady going to look like? What's Drew Brees going to look like? And again, what's Phillip Rivers going to look like? That's the three guys that stand out as the ancient QBs that are expected to have huge impacts on teams that are supposed to be playoff teams this year.
Do you think we get to a point in the NFL where it's kind of like, innings reduction early in the season with starting pitchers in MLB where maybe, Tom Brady sits out week 4 and 5 or something of that nature? Do you think we ever get to that point?
I doubt it. Although the coaches like Belichick, stranger things have happened, but no, I can't envision a scenario in which you get load management for QBs, know. And maybe the sharper coaches, when it comes to play calling in September, will say, all right, I don't want my guys to get hit. I don't want my older quarterback to take hits, and let's make it all dink and dunk right now so he's got something left. Or let's reduce the number of throws. He's only going to, I want to make sure he's at 30 passes or less all through September and October, so he's got something, you can envision a scenario like that where one of the more proactive coaching staffs really looks that in, and has a clear game plan of how they want to approach the season in terms of attempts for a QB. But in any given game, hey, you're down 2 scores, you're still alive. Guess what? You're dropping back and throwing, Yeah. So the theory and the practice may not be exactly on the same page there.
Okay. Teddy, we got 2 teams left here in the NFC South. Just hit Tampa Bay and New Orleans. We got Carolina talking about quarterback questions. Carolina, what we got? There's kind of a discrepancy in terms of the season win totals here, depending what book you want to go.
No, it's a typo. You got a typo there. It should be a 5. 5.45.
Okay, 5.5 here with the typo. Thanks for catching me, Teddy. We got new OC, new DC, new head coach in Carolina with the 5.5 as the season win total. What are you thinking here with the Panthers?
You got a new OC. You got a new DC. You have a first-time NFL head coach. And Matt Rule, we like Matt Rule, okay? Matt Rule did impressive things at Temple. He did impressive things at Baylor. Clearly someone who's capable of building a program and motivating young men. Does that translate to the NFL? Maybe.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly. In general, the college coaches don't necessarily translate that well to the NFL. Carolina was a team, and again, new offense coordinator, new defense coordinator, new systems, new philosophy. This is not a new quarterback, in Bridgewater, who, again, I'm not sold on Bridgewater as being the QB that's going to take you to the next level. Bridgewater was a nice fill-in replacement for Drew Brees last year. And then New Orleans is like, yeah, we can get that same thing from Taysom Hill without having to pay him. Carolina decided to pay Bridgewater, and that's fine. But it's there are holes. There are a lot of holes on that roster. Coming into the season, Carolina is power rated as a bottom 5 team in the NFL, and I think that's merited. It really is. So, and again, you're looking at the numbers. They're in the 5.5 range with juice for the Panthers, and it's not a team that you can expect to come out of the gate and be any good. Not with the amount of the culture, scheme, coaching, quarterback changes that they've had in the offseason. Carolina, to me, is one squad that really is going to be negatively affected by the lack of a regular offseason.
Makes total sense there, Teddy. And I'm with you in terms of the quarterback. I don't think he's going to be, Cam Newton at his prime, anything like that. So in terms of really looking for Carolina to kind of step up and go way over this total, I'm not sure that I see it, especially in this division. So not too high on Carolina. And the college head coaches making the step up, I'd actually think, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't. Matt Rule, he might make it work, but I just think more times than not, you're up against it as a college coach in the NFL. We got the Atlanta Falcons as well, Teddy, to kind of round up here in the NFC South. We got them, 7.5 season win totals with a new DC. Keep Quinn as the head coach. But Matt Ryan, not necessarily as old as Drew Brees and Tom Brady, but he's getting up there as well. At one point was considered one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Not so sure I'd consider him in that right now. But overall, Mercedes-Benz Stadium and all. What are you thinking for the Falcons?
So if there's one team I'm going to bet over in this division, this is the team. Atlanta, each of the last 2 years, they've been riddled with injuries. They've had all kinds of problems. They've fallen apart midseason. And they've come through down the stretch. The effort's been there. That's Dave Quinn's job back-to-back years. It's clearly put up or shut up time for everybody in Atlanta. Whether it's Ryan, whether it's Quinn, whether it's whoever. They're off to multiple underachieving seasons. Nobody gets a third try. And one thing you worry about when betting overs, you don't want to be betting overs in general with coaches that have potential to be lame ducks. Because, if Quinn gets the boot in October, Atlanta's not going over any win total. If Quinn gets the boot in November, Atlanta's not going over any win total. I really worry about betting the overs with the coaches that aren't, that have the potential to be gone midseason, and then it's all, let's try the young guys. You look like the Redskins did, down the stretch last year, where it's not so much about winning games, it's about what kind of playing time can we get for the young people and see if they can play. Like after Washington fired Gruden, they weren't awful. They covered some point spreads, but they weren't going over their win total. And that's very much possible for Atlanta. But you talk about Matt Ryan. This is the guy who was he won an MVP, right? Didn't he?
I think so.
The Super Bowl year. I'm pretty sure he won that year. It doesn't matter. By the way, prop betting. I went back and looked. The last 10 MVP winners have all been quarterbacks. So if you want to save yourself some money betting the MVP, don't be betting running backs or wide receivers. Bet the QB on whatever team's going to win the Super Bowl and or get the number 1 seed. And you're likely to cash your ticket there, but I'm a fan of Ryan. I don't think he's lost it. When you look at the receiving core that Atlanta has, their offensive line hasn't been that good, and they spent again this offseason. It was a lot of effort on shoring up the train. I mean, I know they brought in Gurley, but they have skill position talent. They have some defensive talent, some young defensive talent that showed a little bit down the stretch last year. They have a QB, and their line is a 7.5 win team. And you don't find that many teams with Atlanta's level of skill position talent, Atlanta's level of QB, and Atlanta's level of defense. And again, the defensive numbers were crappy last year, again, like they were the year before. I think the D might be a little bit better than the numbers would show, and I'm fairly bullish on the Atlanta Falcons. I think 7.5 is a little bit low for the Falcons, again, at this stage of the process.
I'm with you, Teddy. And yeah, we did get confirmation from Prez 2016. Matt Ryan was the NFL MVP. Teddy, one question here with the Falcons, because I'm with you. I'm looking to bet them over too. Like what you had to say. Also, just kind of in this division, a lot can change. And Matt Ryan, I'm with you. I think he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL and underrated. How do you go about kind of handicapping the offensive line, though? Because there is huge questions there. And it's not like Matt Ryan, his profile is the type to kind of cover that up with mobility. So that is one thing that worries me. Do you handicap the offensive line getting better in a certain way?
Well, let's see what they do in the draft. Let's see what they look like in preseason. I mean, a lot of the offensive line stuff is how a team can that front unit block in August. Okay. I mean, we'll have some preseason in the NFL. And again, I usually put out my win report in two parts, one prior to the preseason, one after week 3 of the preseason when we see some of these teams. But Atlanta's OL has certainly been a subpar unit, an underachieving unit in recent seasons. But right now, again, pre-draft, we don't really know what that's going to look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to read everything we can read once camp starts and see how the line is progressing. And we're going to pay a lot of attention to I mean, if ever there's a season to pay attention to the preseason, it's going to be this year. Where I expect to watch, again, not necessarily the whole game, but first string versus first string. I'm watching those games like a hawk. Who's controlling the line of scrimmage, how and why. And that's something that will absolutely have an impact on whether I bet the Falcons over their season win total or not. But at first look, all I can look is Atlanta over, and that's probably my favorite bet in the division.
All right, Teddy covers at Teddy_covers. We got some guys in the chat box here chiming in. Scott Brown again, NFL still can't test for HGH. These old QBs will keep holding up. Teddy, any opinion there on steroids and maybe not doing it legally, but that helping the older guys?
I mean, again, it's all about the eye test. If you watch Drew Brees in January, if you watch Tom Brady in January, they were not the same QBs. HGH, whatever hormones, whatever steroids, whatever they're hiding, they weren't the same guys. Not the same QBs by the end of the season they were at the start. And that is much more typical of older quarterbacks than younger quarterbacks. So again, it's not about what they look like in September. And in terms of, whatever, I mean, whether they have advanced their own ability to mask whatever drugs they're taking ahead of what the league is testing for. For a guy like Brady, a guy like Brees, a guy like Rivers, we're talking first ballot Hall of Famers, all three of them. Do they take that risk? Because if we find out that Brady's on whatever hormone, that's a big legacy, changer.
Yeah.
For any of them, it's a big legacy changer. I don't know if it's worth the risk. I don't buy it.
Teddy, we got Abel Alvarez asking, does a push in a parlay bet have any value, especially in a round robin?
Does a push in a parlay bet and a round robin parlay have any? I mean, of course it has a value, because what's going to happen with your push bet, if the other side, if you have a two-teamer and the one that pushes, the other one wins, you're going to cash a ticket. And if you lose that by a half point, you're not going to cash that ticket. You're going to give the money, the books get to keep it. Okay. So even if you turn a two-teamer into a win and a push, you're getting something back on your investment. So a push is always worth something. A push beats the hell out of losing a bet any day of the week. And those half points are always worth shopping for. even in parlays, which is one of the reasons that some of the wise guys, and they don't play parlays, they're like, well, I can bet this and get 7 at plus 105 here. And if I bet the parlay there, I'm only getting 7 at plus minus 110. I won't bet it. There are a handful of guys like that for sure. Because when you're betting the parlays, you're betting everything at one book. And the guys that would like to, that are real nits on the line shopping, which you have to be, they're like, well, I'm getting 3 cents of it better here, and I'm getting a half point better there, and I'm getting 7 cents better here. I don't want to parlay at the same book. But the bottom line is, the answer to your question is yes. A push does help, even if it only helps a little.
Teddy, a question from Twitter here, @1Darren_Darren, asking, in college football, which we'll ask on tomorrow's show, guys, 1 o'clock with Ralph Michaels and Rob Vino. But do want to ask you, Teddy, question for the next show here. How do you value returning production versus a coaching change and change in scheme? Returning production is good, but should it be discounted with changes to the scheme in the NFL?
In the NFL and college, both. This year, yes. Okay. Nobody had a full spring practice. There's a few college squads that had most of their spring practices. By and large, most of them didn't. The NFL, nobody did anything in the spring, and the mini camps that we normally see in April and May and post-draft, we're not going to see this year. So when you talk about returning production in either NFL or college, it's great. But with a change of scheme or a change of coaching, that's going to mitigate a lot of those advantages. The teams that haven't changed personnel and haven't changed schemes and haven't changed coaches are going to have an edge in September over the teams that had any of those changes. The continuity matters. Now, if they don't have enough talent, it won't matter. But in general, the teams with continuity will have an edge over the teams that don't, and the teams with new coaches and or coordinators are teams that aren't likely to have that same level of continuity.
And Teddy, just college football right here. Do you think that that's even heightened this year in college football because the lack of spring practices?
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe in terms of my initial strategy for early season college football is this is one time where you want to be laying points with good teams. The good teams are going to come out and be ready, and the teams that aren't good is that whether it's their coaching changes or scheme changes or personnel changes, the teams that have suffered whatever type of upheaval in the offseason, they're likely to struggle coming out of the gate.
Absolutely, Teddy. We got Steve Terry here. Any thoughts on the NFL? We'll be back on time. Okay, forget the college football, Teddy. Just NFL kicking off on time, not finishing anything like that. Week 1, the first game kicks off on time. What would you price that at?
It's probably the favorite.
Okay.
It's probably the favorite. But no, minus 150. 3-2. Are they 2-1 to kick off on time? That can't be 10. Nothing can be 2-1 to kick off on time right now.
And with no fans, right?
Oh yeah. Fans is a whole different story. But the NFL kicking. The NFL's from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
The NFL's as big as it gets.
Yeah.
There's nothing bigger than the NFL. All the top-rated shows every year, the Sunday night and the Monday night games and the Super Bowl and the playoff games. It's for broadcasting and for whatever. So you have to assume that and the monetary amounts for the NFL producing programming are so enormous. They'll find a way. They'll find a way to play NFL, whether it's with fans or without. And whether it's on time or not. Whether there's a season, that starts in February. I heard something. Yeah, the NFL will run February to June next year. Like, okay, they'll find a way to have the NFL. I'm fairly confident. College, I'm not.
Oh man, so that means no other college sports either, because college football pays the bills, right? So it wouldn't be until the following year.
I'm not saying that there won't be college. I'm saying I would not bet that there will be a college football this year, whereas I bet there'll be an NFL season this year of one form or another.
And we got Steve Terry saying, is the XFL really done? Is it done forever now? The XFL's hanging up the cleats?
Everybody got laid off, so McMahon. Of course, it had to get. The XFL, when you're talking about guys that are just hemorrhaging cash, the billionaires when you have to pay out X number of employees every week and you have zero income coming in, that doesn't last long.
Right.
So XFL has been disbanded. Everybody's a free agent. Everybody's free of their contracts, et cetera, et cetera. To see that coming back for next year, no. I mean, maybe somewhere down the line, but not next year.
Dang, Teddy, I like the XFL, man.
I know, me and you both.
Dang, man. Well, is what it is. Teddy, I know we're kind of running up against it. 46 minutes here. Do you want to throw out anything else, man?
Look, I mean, we got lots of win totals to talk about. I feel like we could have done it like today's the day we could do a 3-hour podcast and have stuff to talk about for 3 hours. And I got a bunch of stuff work done here that I'm excited to have made. Whatever. You feel better when you get something productive done. I spent at least 2 weeks just sitting around with my thumb up my ass. The world's coming to an end and all that. No, dude, settle down. It'll be fine. We'll get there. May not be tomorrow, but we'll get there. So it just feels good to be getting my work done and going through some of this stuff. And again, we can go through as many divisions as you want. I'm ready to go right now.
So am I. I don't want it to end, but I just feel like I don't know. There's powers that be that don't want it to go too long. Teddy, what about
it to end?
Teddy,
our time together.
Stock market economy wise, when you say thumb up your ass for 3 weeks and then now kind of feeling better about things. Would you kind of, what you do know about the stock market, kind of recommend maybe buying some stocks right now?
Well, shit, it's already up 25% off the lows.
You're right, yeah.
If you were able to come in at the bottom or near the bottom, you've already made a profit. If you're trying to buy in now, I would not be making a broad bet on the Dow Jones average 6 months from now, right now. I really wouldn't. Whatever stock investments I'm making at this moment are short term. Okay. I want to be able to get in and get out. So that's my 2 cents. What's the Dow at today? 23, 24?
Yeah, it was down before we started about 450 points, but it was up 25-30% from the absolute lows.
Yeah.
You're right. It's up a lot. Plus the fact we're getting into earnings season. JP Morgan, I believe, kicks off tomorrow. And when you start talking about what the stock market doesn't like is uncertainty. And I've heard that a lot of these big companies are just going to do away with their guidance, meaning we're not even giving guidance on the next quarter. And that's the definition of uncertainty. So I totally agree with you. I would not be buying right now. Possibly, if you're into options and long dated, which I did personally, long dated calls on companies like JP Morgan, to be able to buy them at, say, $100, but buy them in January of 2021, just because all the stimulus money coming into the economy, it's got to go somewhere. And we saw what it did in 08, 09 and pushing these stocks higher. I think that could have something to do long term. But you're right, Teddy. I mean, in the next year, I don't know, man. There's shaky ground. And if we, China's already having reports of kind of stepping back some of the reopening of some restaurants and bars. So I think that looking to see what China and some of these other countries that got it first, what they're doing is likely how it's going to come here. So I would look at that. But yeah, I'm with you, Teddy. I'm not looking to buy, in terms of the next 6 months.
Drew, I'm now live on the show. I've been buying for 10 days. I think the time is amazing to buy. I've been buying MasterCard, Amazon, Blackstone. If anybody finds themselves lucky enough to have liquidity, I think now is an incredible time. And I think it's very rare for people to find themselves in a market that has tanked so much with so many outstanding opportunities and actually have liquidity at this moment. I think that's ultimately the problem, the liquidity. But I don't agree with either of you. I think the timing to buy is right now.
Well,
So
unfortunately, we're not at all-time lows anymore. If you could go back to March 23rd, I would agree with you. But if you're buying Amazon right now, you're what? You're a couple percent away from all-time
you're
highs,
right.
Prez.
And I just was telling you what stocks I was buying. I started 10 days ago. So, I mean, I've been holding Amazon for 9 days now. There were opportunities then, but you're right about Amazon. But there's still opportunities out there. I think ultimately the problem is nobody's sitting on liquidity.
Yep, that's true. Scott Brown saying the Spanish flu was worse in its second wave. That's a good point, too. So we'll see how this second wave of COVID-19 comes. But there was a lot more deaths. That was also back in 1918. So not sure how much to put in over. But Teddy, man, anything you want to throw out in conclusion, man?
I look forward to the other 7 divisions.
We'll hit it hard next week, and we can maybe go longer. Not too sure.
And for those of you who took the time to watch Drew and I today, we really appreciate it. I promise that you won't have to deal with Lawrence butting in next show.
Well, thank you, Teddy.
You
Always
are
fun,
right,
man.
Teddy, because next show is going to be out of Drew's house and not mine, so I won't even have a microphone. But I'm going.
That's why,
Teddy, I'm going to figure out a way to interrupt. I'm going to work out a way with Drew where I'm going to call in just to bother you, because nothing bothers you more than me. I'm literally your COVID-19.
You're that might be your new nickname.
Okay, love you guys.
Yeah.
All right, guys, it's been fun. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern time. So best of luck, stay safe, and remember to wash your hands.